Welcome to Rates and Barrels. It is Thursday, October 2nd. Derek Van Riper, Eno Saris here with you on this episode. We have three series going to a decisive Game 3 in the wild card round. We'll talk a little bit about the fallout from Game 2 and sneak a few expectations in for games that'll be probably getting underway as you get a chance to listen to this podcast on Thursday afternoon. We have the elimination of the Reds. We'll talk about where things go from here for that Cincinnati team and maybe some decisions that we would have made differently if we were in the shoes of Terry Francona in an elimination game, as the Reds were on Wednesday night. So, let's get started. Let's go where the action began on Wednesday. Tigers, Guardians. This Guardians lineup, they squeezed out a 5-run 8th inning, and I didn't expect Troy Melton to be the cog in the Detroit reliever machine that let them down, but it ended up being a lot of damage against Melton. I mean, Bo Naylor hit a ridiculous home run in this game, and here we are, Guardians-Tigers, one more day for one of those teams and one more series at least for the other.
Oh my God, that Bo Naylor homer, it was a left-on-left sweeper. That he was like, he went down on one knee and just golfed it out. And, that was the clincher, and it was pretty amazing. So, I still have a lot of confidence in Troy Melton, but I think that maybe one thing that doesn't port over as well is that one of the reasons I still have confidence in Troy Melton going forward is as a starting pitcher because of a good, well-rounded arsenal. And then when you make him a reliever, you put a lot of pressure on just the four seam and the splitter. And it was nice that he was, sitting 99 and with the fastball and 90 with the splitter. But I think he's more well suited to being a starter and having, multiple weapons to go at somebody. I don't know that he's somebody where I'm like, these are, two of the best pitchers in baseball, and I want him to be a closer, So I still have confidence in him going forward, and I think that was just a tough start. I mean, some of the hits that they had, one of the things that was also interesting to me was that the wind was terrible. And we saw that from the very beginning with the Chase DeLauter bobble in center field, or the drop, really. And then the weird thing is that, we saw plenty of balls go to right field and die, except for the George Valera home run that was registered by StatCast as going 2 feet and being hit like 80 miles an hour, which was all incorrect. But, that one went right into the teeth of the wind somehow. And I think, I don't know, it's just one of those days where, certain really tiny things go in different directions, like that call on the slide. I'm not suggesting the call was incorrect, but the McKinstry slides into third base and is called out, and that erases Dylan Dingler at home because he didn't cross plate before the out. There's a universe in which the third base coach sees what's happening and tells him, turn around. And he turns around, the run scores, and he gets into a pickle, and they still get that run. So it wasn't decided by one run, but there's all these little things that add up, and I don't think that my opinion of the Guardians' offense has completely changed. We did have some interesting research in the Discord from Dominic about the Guardians' offense and how they've kind of gone with the pull in the air approach, and they've added pull air. And that was a little bit of last year's power explosion in the first half. Pull air, though, if you are intentionally doing it, it does open you up. It means that you are going to maybe swing at more pitches that are high and tight that you can pull in the air, and it does open you up to pitches low and away, and it does open you up to people understanding that's what you want to do and manipulating you. So he said that since a big explosion in power in the second half last year and this year, it's led to more sort of rollovers, soft pop flies, because what they don't have that the Yankees, when they pull in the air, have, or the Blue Jays, is they don't hit it hard.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the other part. You can pull in the air, but it's better if you pull in the air and hit it hard. So they led the league. I mean, I think I saw that both of the homers weren't barrels yesterday. And Dominic said that they led the league in like sub 100 mile an hour home runs.
That's interesting. Yeah, non-barreled homers. Haven't thought about making that a leaderboard yet, but at some point, we'll have to see. But the thing that I think is related to that research that Dominic put out there is just when you look at the team BABIP leaderboards and you sort the lowest team BABIP in the league, it will not surprise you, given what Eno was just saying, the Guardians hit 268 on balls in play, dead last in the big leagues, right? The types of batted balls they're hitting are easier to turn into outs. If you're rolling over, you're hitting those soft fly balls, that is going to cost you in a big way. And I do think that's part of the analysis that explains why someone like Bo Naylor, who actually does hit the ball pretty hard and has shown he can run well in the past. We've seen some pretty big stolen base seasons from him in the minors, especially for a catcher. I know he's only got like one steal this year. It explains why he runs a BABIP as low as he does. It's the types of batted balls. Like, he's just not putting a lot out there that's likely to turn into a hit. And I think that's true of several hitters up and down that Guardians lineup.
Yeah, I'm trying to do a non-barreled home run leaderboard really quickly. And Cleveland had 20 non-barreled home runs this year, did not lead the league. Houston led the league.
That is an Isaac Paredes stat, I believe.
That probably is.
So the Crawford boxes sort of lend themselves to that exact type of homer.
Yeah. But, it is something to their, I guess their genius, quote unquote, is, putting the ball in the air so that if you do make contact close to 100 or whatever, it goes out, but generally I still think that this is in the Tigers' court.
It should be. They're still the much better lineup, at least top to bottom. But I do like that the ghosts of Guardians prospect list past are showing up at the exact right time. And Valera, I think, because of injuries in the upper levels of the minor leagues especially, has lost a lot of that prospect shine, but he controls the strike zone pretty well. When he's healthy, we've seen high hard hit rates in the minors, I think as high as 49.4% back in 2023. That was over 73 games in Columbus. That's the Fangraphs AAA hard hit rate. So I think Valera still has a little bit of that post-hype sleeper appeal for really deep leagues.
Also took him a really long time to get here.
Injuries, though, man. Lots of injuries.
But he spent a long time at every level. He's 188 clearances at low A, 263 at high A. He had 2 attempts at double A, and then he was in triple A in 2022.
Yeah.
And he didn't get a major league plate appearance until this year.
On a team that has had a pretty ongoing need for some thump or outfield help most of that time.
Suggests to me that they don't trust it somehow. I think what leaps out for me is the contact rates and the hard hit rates. They don't speak for each other. Like a John Kensky Noel, right? He strikes out and he's gotten a chance before Valera in the big leagues. But his max EVs and bat speeds and hard hit rates are consistently higher. So they're willing to, take that in so that they get the other, right? And with Valera, it seems like, they're not sure that one is worth the other.
Yeah. Fangraphs had a 30-grade hit tool on Valera, too, which might be the other explanation for why it's taken this long, aside from the absences he's had due to injury on his way up to the big leagues. But Jack Flaherty versus Slade Cecconi in Game 3. That'll be the matinee that gets underway here on Thursday afternoon. We'll see who ends up being right. I had the Guardians side for this series. You had the Tigers side. I think the Vegas odds are on Eno's side just slightly. Producer Brian indicating it's a minus 125 for the Tigers. As
this one might actually have some runs.
Yeah, probably a little more on both sides, like 8 or 9 combined runs. I think is possible in this matchup as long as the wind isn't bad. It is nice that the Chase DeLauder dropped fly ball. It's amazing the ball finds you right away in your debut.
Yeah,
first time playing in that outfield, windy conditions. Finds you immediately. I'm glad that didn't end up defining his big league debut.
Do you think that was a good decision? I feel like the thing that is difficult is you don't want to muck around with the confidence. And one thing that was said was that when they told Chase, they said this on the radio, that when they told Chase DeLauder that he was going to make the postseason roster, he said, "Good, I'm ready." And Stephen Vogt said that was an example of his confidence and that, that's why he was going to be fine. I don't think you want to muck around with that confidence where you're like, he's in the lineup and then you go out there and you're like, ooh, the wind's pretty bad. This is kind of crazy. We're taking him out of the lineup. You know what I mean? But then you're like, what? As the player, you're kind of like, oh no, they don't really have confidence in me. So I guess you just stick them out there. But, did they know that it would be kind of windy and crazy out there? Or, when did they know that? And did they even take that into consideration? I don't know. It could have gotten a lot. It could have been worse because we saw Jose Ramirez stagger around on some catches. We definitely saw some funky movements on batted balls to the outfield, especially right center. And, they must have been able to anticipate some of that.
I think the part that's weird to me is that he played center field. And I'm looking at Baseball Reference. I don't think Chase DeLauder played center field in the minors at all this year. He started one game. That's rookie ball. Looks like 9 or 10 appearances in center at Double-A last year. I mean,
that's weird too. But I guess
that's the tougher ask part.
I mean, it's the tougher ask part. Yeah, like make it easy on them. But also, I guess this major league team, that's where you most easily fit him in because I don't think you want to put Stephen Kwan in center necessarily. And then right is where they've been sticking guys who are, I would say, obviously worse defensively than Chase DeLauder. Right.
Yeah, so that's why they did it. But that was the part of it that I think was maybe the most bold. And then you think about, fly balls in a big league stadium are going to be different than the minor league stadiums because they're bigger. The concourses are higher. The stadiums are higher. So the wind patterns are different. And I think the Guardians know they've played enough October baseball and are familiar enough with what's likely to be happening in their ballpark to know what they were asking of him. But that was the bold part for me, is that he doesn't have a lot of experience in center field in the upper levels of the minors. I think he played a good bit out there in college. Let's get to Padres Cubs. I think the tagline on this one is, if you have that bullpen, use it. Dylan Cease looked really good for 3 2/3, and Mike Shildt said, hey, good job. Now we're going to the bullpen, and they're not going to touch our bullpen. And he was right. And Mason Miller came into that game eventually, struck out all 5 batters that he retired, and threw a pitch 104.5, which is a new postseason record.
And it was on the black. Lower, like lone away corner. There was speculation on the socials that was the best pitch ever. Because it's just like one of the fastest 10 pitches ever thrown in baseball, and also happened to be pitched to like the exact best spot in the strike zone. So, I mean, sure, I am not one that believes that they used to throw as hard as they throw now. And that this is all a remnant of the machines. Yes, there it is. The plasmized air. Mason Miller will be the first pitcher to disintegrate himself by throwing a ball so fast. But no, I think they managed that part right. They also didn't have Jackson Merrill bunt. He hit a sac fly. That was good. Also, the coaching play where he said, Manny Machado, go hit a home run. That was some good coaching there.
Good coaching. Yeah, that's what you do with the kids, right? You get to the boys. Okay, we need a home run here. Can you hit a home run? Hit a home run.
Yeah.
It's that easy.
Actually, I thought it was poor coaching on the other side that led to the Manny Machado homer. Because if you do the whole Andrew Kittredge opener, the whole reason you do that is that you don't have that. Imanaga doesn't have to see Manny Machado multiple times. I think you take him seeing him once, and you put him in your pocket, and you say, "Thank you so much, Shota. Let's move on from here." That's not what they did. And the one thing that Shota has done all year is give up, homers. He does that. And it was a righty, and it was a big righty, and it was a big spot. So I think the opener part was fine. Like getting through the lineup and giving up one run, it's not that bad. Because that's the first inning is the inning in which you are guaranteed to see the best hitters. It's the only inning in which you're guaranteed to face the best hitters. And to get through that and give up one run, but like Kittredge did, I would say that does not say that they did the wrong thing with the opener. I think that's fine. You were going to give up one run.
You live with the one run in that instance because
in order to take Shota out earlier.
Yeah. They just missed on the back end of it. And maybe the game being as tight as it was a factor in all of that. I mean, I think that's the reality. We get to sit here the day after and analyze decisions up and down every game. And some decisions are closer to coin flips. I mean, in that Tigers-Guardians game, initially I was really confused as to why they would use Jahmai Jones in the place of Riley Green. Not because Jahmai Jones isn't great against hitting lefties, and that was the matchup against Tim Herron, but because, when the lineup comes back around later, you're going to want Riley Green against the Guardians' best right-handed relievers. So you would ideally use Jahmai Jones for one of your other lefties. It's a little bit less important later in the game than Riley Green. Ben Clemens broke it down with some math, and math actually favored A.J. Hinch's decision in that
Which doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, he seems to be the guy who plays the numbers.
And it was enough of a win probability difference, something like 1.5%, I think is what Ben had before acknowledging like the pinch hitter penalty and some other things. That's a big shift in win probability. It's actually very meaningful, even though it sounds like it's very small. So I think as you go through these decisions, you're like, okay, yeah, there is maybe a 0.5% increase in win probability, also still significant for some kinds of decisions that you make, but you have to also consider all the different possibilities that may come up later in the moment and make those decisions on the fly. We get the benefit of sleeping on it, ruminating on it, seeing how it worked out, and then going back and analyzing it. And I think that's the easier position to be in.
It takes the confidence that your job isn't on the line if you do this wrong, because you're taking your best hitter out. It takes the confidence of knowing that your front office supports your decision and has actually talked about something like this and is totally cool with it. And then lastly, and this is the part I can't ever know, we can't know, it takes the confidence of knowing that your player, your star player, will not take a hit to his confidence and will not sort of wallow in his own self-pity because he just got taken out in one of the biggest part of the games for a pinch hitter. I mean, that part, is that worth 1.5% win probability?
That's definitely one of the areas where you're like, man, like, yeah.
Don't you want to hit a home?
We got a little edge this time, but what did it cost us later? And how? And maybe we can't always measure that as well as we'd like to.
Yeah, and that's the one part where I might separate myself from some of the more harder core analytics people is that, if something can't be measured, I don't say it doesn't exist. Like clutch, I'm not willing to say clutch doesn't exist. I'm just saying the way we've measured it, we can't prove that, it's a sticky year-to-year skill that people reliably have. That's the way I would put it. So, are there people with slower heartbeats? I bet you there are. I bet you there is some sort of clutch. But I also think that you probably have to be pretty clutch to make the big leagues. Like if you're as unclutch as I am, you don't make the big leagues. So.
If you're out here dropping clean forks when you pull them out of the dishwasher, you're probably not making the big leagues. Right? Everybody listening to this show is like, oh man, I feel seen right now.
Yeah.
But I think where I'm looking at that decision in hindsight and saying it was kind of brutal, and the game was 6-1 at the time, but Cade Smith's on to close it out for the Guardians, and you end up having to use Justin Henry Malloy in the spot that would have been Riley Green's. That's the part where I'm like, see, like it was early enough in the game, you were going to have another opportunity with Green, and I think that's the harder sell for me too, aside from any sort of impact that has on Green's confidence.
I don't like it. I don't like that move.
You can justify it with the math, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's why he did it, and he has to live with that. And if that ends their season, that's going to be part of the story. So,
but if you're playing for one run there, yeah, like Riley Green might come up again, and he's like the most likely guy in the lineup to give you one run by himself. You know what I mean? So this is sort of leaving apart the Guardians scoring, because that was a bit of a surprise.
You didn't know that eighth inning was happening. Like at the time, you're just managing the situation as it is. Tim Herron is a lower strikeout reliever, 23.2% this year. So it's not like it's the Chapman level lefty, the 30+%. Like I think that's the other part of it. Again, the math, while it was in the favor of the decision, it was close enough where I think it wouldn't have been malpractice to just leave it as is and let Riley Green hit there. I think that's the way I would sum it up. As far as that Padres-Cubs matchup that we have coming up here on Thursday, Yu Darvish versus Jameson Taillon. I love that you took a snapshot of the Darvish pitch usage against lefties and righties, and I once again present to you my version of the Pam Beasley. It's the same picture. It's the same approach to lefties and righties. Nearly identical usage. Throw everything against everyone.
Like, more sweepers against righties and more splitters against lefties, and that everything else he throws at least 5 pitches to both sides, and really he throws 6 or 7 to both sides. And I think that's a key to not being keyholed. It is a key for him going deep, which may actually be important because you used Morhone back-to-back games and used him for 2 innings. So I think Morhone, if he's available tonight, and honestly, in a fatigue in a fatigue units situation, I think he would probably not be available, especially in the regular season. But if he's available, I think you want to use him for 1 or 2 outs. I think you want to get a lefty to get out of an inning kind of situation with him. I don't think you want to use him very long. And Mason Miller went 2 innings for a second day in a row. Now, you can use him again, but I think you only want to use him for an inning, right? And then Suarez went for 4 outs, and, he's had some issues with multiple sort of back-to-back long outings. So I think you'd want to use him for 3 innings. So I think the most you want to use your big guys is like 2.5, 3 innings, combined. So 6, you want to get through 6. That's the math. Yu Darvish has the pitches to get through 6. You just don't know how effective he'd be. The one thing that I think is going in his favor is this is a new arm slot. The Cubs haven't seen him with the new arm slot. Now you can make the trajectory, throw Yu Darvish from the new arm slot and get some at-bats in. But that might not be the same as actually seeing it. And, Yu Darvish is the one guy that might have a wrinkle for you. Like maybe he just comes out and throws a ton of splitters for some reason, And so I think there's a little bit of pressure, I would say, for Yu Darvish to go long. The only thing that I can say is Michael King, too. Mm-hmm. So do you want to use Michael King as a reliever? Maybe it's 3 for Darvish, 3 for King, and 3 for the pen. That would be a recipe for success. However, it does tire out some people before the DS, if you make it.
Yeah, you have to play it in a way, though, where you got to get through it. And then you get the off
you got to win.
Friday,
there is no DS.
Reset. So, the bulk of your short relievers get a day off on Friday no matter what. I think with Miller having gone 1 in game 1 and then 1 2/3, it would be 3 in a row for him. I think you're right to say it's likely just 3 outs for Mason Miller. Most likely, if they're going to use him again, they've been pretty careful with him since they got him in that trade with the A's, but we're kind of in the everything's different. It's the postseason.
Maybe
sort
you
of
even use him in the fifth to get out of the fifth with guys on, and somebody big up,
Yeah, that could be the situation that calls for it. I'm curious to see how they manage it. Morejon, I think, is probably down today. I don't think we'll see Morejon. He's pitched in both games, and because it was a longer outing in game 2 especially, I'd be really surprised if they went to him for a third day in a row. The Cubs were able to rest a couple of their top relievers. I don't think we saw Palencia or Keller in game 2, so they can probably get a lot from both of those guys on their side, so it should be a really good game 3 matchup between those two clubs. Let's go to Red Sox Yankees. Of course, this series was going 3. There was no world in which Red Sox Yankees was only going to go to
game 1. We're gonna have somebody who lost game 1 win the series today.
You're confident today's the day?
Somebody. We got 3 chances.
You got a lunch and a soda. You're ready.
Yeah, we got 3 chances. We've only had 12 chances so far in the history of baseball, and we got 3 in one day. So yes, I feel pretty good about this.
Is this you sticking with your original pick for the Yankees to win this series in 3, and then they'll be the team that makes good
I do think so.
This prediction?
I like Connolly early, and I like that I said his name right.
I love that you said his name right.
But this is a big spot for him. I don't necessarily ascribe to you can't, rookies are overmatched in the playoffs and playoff experience matters. I haven't been able to prove that in the numbers. But there's still a fact that this is the biggest game he's ever pitched. Brian points out the Yankees are a favorite. The lineup is really great. And as much as I like early, I like Cam Schlittler better. And it's not just Cam Schlittler, it's Cam Schlittler and Luis Heel. So I think that combination is a little better than, Peyton Tolley went yesterday. So Tolley on a back-to-back, who used to be starting all year with early. The whole staff, I think, favors the Yankees by a little bit, and the lineup has always favored the Yankees by a lot.
Yeah, I think because Alex Cora gave Brian Bayo the quick hook in game 2, he leaned on a lot of relievers in game 2, so it's going to be more guys on back-to-backs. It's kind of funny that Garrett Whitlock threw more pitches than anybody else for the Red Sox. He threw 47 pitches in game 2 as a late inning relief option. I'm curious to know, what do you think about the Red Sox current platoons? Do you think it's even, regardless of the handedness of the opposing starter? This is the first right-handed starter they're going to see with Schlittler, since it was Fried and Rodon as a couple of lefties. So instead of Ref Snyder, it's Yoshida. Instead of Romy Gonzalez, it's Nathaniel Lowe. And instead of Nate Eaton, it's Wilyer Abreu. Because in my brain, I like the left-handed hitters better across the board, even though those are viable platoon partners.
Romy's the only one that I would want without considering platoon. You know what I mean? Romy's, I think, a pretty good hitter. The other two, I think, are very much platoon hitters. You get Ref Snyder out for Yoshida as soon as you can, and that's what they did. And I think Nate Eaton, listen, we're supposed to know all the rosters. We do a good job of it. I don't make this mistake a lot, but I did not know that Nate Eaton was on the Red Sox. When did that happen?
I'm not going to leave you. I'm not going to leave you out there on your own. He was previously a Royal. Yeah, when Nate Eaton was in the lineup for game 1, I'm like, oh yeah, Nate Eaton's there. I had the same kind of reaction.
Okay, well, when did he get there? Was he released by the Royals?
It's the Roman Anthony absence, though. It's that. That's the main part of why is Nate Eaton actually part of this?
That's what I was thinking with Nick Sogard. I was like, what led to Nick Sogard playing second here? And it's Marcelo Meyer, it's Roman Anthony, because Ceddanne Rafaela was playing a lot of second.
Yeah. So they're cobbling it together. They're making it work, and
it's a better lineup for this game. You're right. It's a good point.
So that's the thing that I like a little more about the Red Sox.
And then you have the same decisions.
Any righty.
Yeah, and then you have same decisions for the Yankees with regards to facing a lefty again.
Mm-hmm.
Do you take Jazz out? Do you take Ben Rice out? Ben Rice, who had a big homer.
Early 2-run homer was a big one.
Do you have, and basically they did, show their hands and say basically, Paul Goldschmidt is starting against every lefty in the postseason. So Goldschmidt is in. And for what it's worth, Aaron Boone, when sort of asked about Jazz being angry, was like, it's not my job to make him happy.
Right. Yeah, they're not going to like all the decisions I make, is basically the way he said it, which is fine. It's what the manager's supposed to say. We're not going to like all the decisions they make. That's fine. That's our job to critique them, right? But
maybe with Schlittler on the mound, you think today's a need for offense more than defense. So maybe the Caballero decision, which I think we should have pointed out that Caballero versus Jazz was a defensive position, not because Caballero is better than Jazz. It's that Caballero at third is better than Ahmed Rosario at third.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how it happened, because Ahmed Rosario's defensive shortcomings led to Jazz being out of the lineup, basically. If Ahmed Rosario was a good defensive third baseman, Jazz might have still been in the lineup. And so that's the decision you have again but maybe you say, this is a higher scoring game, so I'm not going to make that Caballero decision again. And I'll just put Caballero at third and don't use Ahmed and leave Jazz in there. Because I think how long do you think Connolly Early is going to be in the game?
That's the whole thing that's different, right? I mean, if you have whatever your odds are of Garrett Crochet going 6 at any given start, there's a pretty big gap, especially in an elimination game, in terms of your expected number of innings from someone like Crochet to Early. And I say that as someone that's acknowledging how well Early's pitched and how much we like him. So I think that planning leads you to start Jazz in this game. I'd be very surprised if Jazz is on the bench. The situation is different enough where if you thought it was close before, I think Aaron Boone did think it was close before, even though he went the other direction. I think you toggle it back to Jazz being in the lineup this time around.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess you could still make the argument like, okay, well, Early's, you just go to Jazz and say, hey, you probably missed one at bat early on. Because, I'm going to put you in as soon as Early's out.
Now I just want some drama. Like, I want Jazz the homer off of Connolly Early.
Yeah, right.
That's what I want.
Did you see that Jazz, after he got angry, he went, this was on the live blog at The Athletic. After he got angry that day, he went home and he played MLB The Show till 3 a.m.
Yes.
And apparently he's created this, like, he's called it an alien lineup where it's like him and Griffey and Jimmy Rollins. And it sounds like maybe a lot of black players that, like, with this like crazy lineup, and that he thinks he's like 65-5 in his career in MLB The Show. He says that a lot of these games people just quit because he just homers with his first 3 guys, and they rage quit because they realize who it is and who they're playing, and they just rage quit before the cleanup guy steps up to the plate.
I'd watch Jazz Chisholm play a little bit of MLB The Show on Twitch if that was an option. I think I'd tune in. It wouldn't be like 3 hours for me, but I'd watch a little bit of that.
Especially since he says he trash talks constantly. So
that's why I would tune in. Like I think a mic'd up Jazz hitting dingers in MLB The Show with his alien lineup, as he described it, that'd be worth watching for a little while. But
imagine at 2 a.m. after a playoff game.
Yeah, right. And on the other end, you don't know it's Jazz Chisholm that's tearing you up. You just think it's some rando talking
No, he
trash.
He says that after a while they figure it out.
They do figure it out? That's cool.
Yeah.
And then they still rage quit? Nah,
I don't know. I might take the pummeling just to hear the stuff for a while.
Yeah. I think it just makes for a good story at the very least. But looking
Jazz
forward
beat
to
me
this
25-0 last night. MLB The Show at 2 a.m.
Sorry, I called in sick to work. I was up too late getting just absolutely destroyed in MLB The Show by Jazz Chisholm Jr. But I helped the Yankees win, boss. He felt a lot better and woke up the next day and had a great game.
Yeah.
See if that works at your place of employment. Let's talk Reds-Dodgers here for a minute. A few things that jumped off the page. Once again, the Dodgers leaned on their starter. Yoshinobu Yamamoto went 6 2/3, 9 Ks, 2 unearned runs. He looked really good. I think it's obvious that because of that rotation strength and bullpen weakness, they will push their starters about as hard as they've pushed their starters. It's who they have is a huge part of that. Like, you have guys that can get through the lineup 3 times. And what happens against teams with better lineups is going to ultimately determine how heavily they have to lean on the underbelly of that bullpen. But I think the main takeaway from these two games, if you're a Dodgers fan, like, yeah, your lineup's good. You knew that already. The way Roki Sasaki looked finishing that game out, that gives you a really nice boost in the bullpen as these series move forward, right? I think we're looking at Roki, the reliever, at least for the rest of this postseason, maybe beyond, as a great fit for a team that desperately needs someone like that on the back end to step up.
Yeah, Roki looked great. And, I think that as much as the shape on his four seam isn't great, a wise man once told me shape is velo, velo is shape. And once you are at 100 miles an hour, another way of saying is that shape don't matter at 100.
I don't think it does, especially with 7-1 extension.
Yeah, that's a good point. That was in the Discord as well. I also think that he just doesn't have a good breaking ball, and so that is a long-term discussion for making him a starter. This may just be the role for him. We've seen him do it at the WBC. He's a big game pitcher when he's got his confidence. He's got his big fastball. Apparently, Rob Hill, the director of pitching, this is from a Fabian story, said that he needed to change the way he used his shoulders in his lower half, and that really unlocked the velo again. And it looks great when he's just using those two pitches. It's when he has to use one of the breaking balls or try to throw two or three different fastballs that it kind of falls apart. And we saw even when he was pitching pretty hard velo wise in his recovery and his rehab, that he would pitch really well for 3 innings and then fall apart in the fourth. That happened a couple times on rehab. So these are all the kind of things that Mason Miller went through. Like these are all the kind of things we've seen other guys go through, where it's just you can't do it for and you use those guys early on for like multiple innings appearances when they're young, and then they just sort of transition to closers that get 3 outs over the course of their career. I could see him having a long career as a closer, and just in time for the Dodgers, because other than him, the bullpen has not actually fared that well. And this is against a team, remember, the Reds is not a very good offensive team. So Sheehan coming in out of the pen didn't do that well. Vesia looked shaky to me. Treinen was 1 out. And this isn't even about Tuesday's game, where in that game, who gave it up? We know they gave up. Alex Vesia gave up 2 runs in that one. Edgardo Henriquez walked 2, didn't strike out anyway, didn't get an out and gave up a run. Dreyer looked all right, and Treinen looked all right, but I would give this bullpen pre-Roki a D. I don't know what to give it with Roki. It does stabilize them to some point if he's actually their closer. But I did pick the Phillies. We're gonna do more of a preview tomorrow, but I did pick the Phillies bullpen over the Dodgers bullpen because of Duran, but the stability there, and I think generally it's a little bit better. What do you think? If Roki is this closer, is it closer? It's closer now.
It's quite a bit closer, because I think you have him stretched out enough where it's not just 1 inning at a time. I think you can use him the way the Padres used Mason Miller. You get 5 or 6 outs with Roki in certain games, depending on if you had an off day and how much he's been used in a series. And that goes a really long way. I think grading a bullpen right now also probably comes on a curve of how much do you need it, right? Like, I think in the assumption that the Dodgers get
Philly
5,
starters go deep. Philly starters go deeper than the Dodgers starters.
Yeah, I think in that particular series, both teams' starters should go comparably deep. I would say maybe like the Luzardo game is one where you'd expect a little less from the starter potentially. But if you're thinking about Snell and Yamamoto and Ohtani and Glasnow, you're expecting 5+ from all of those guys. So that list is pretty short for both bullpens. Like I think, I guess what I'm saying is it's kind of an apples to apples comparison, where you can say, do they have the 3 or 4 best guys and how do they line up? And I think edge-wise, slight edge to the Phillies because we haven't seen Tanner Scott fix it yet.
I think Kerkering can be better.
Duran, Strahm, Kerkering, Robertson maybe is their fourth right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's probably as good as what you're going to get from the Dodgers out of whatever combination of Roki, Treinen, Tanner Scott, and Vesia. Even in 2 games they were winning handily, we didn't see Tanner Scott.
Didn't see Tanner Scott at all.
So I don't know if Tanner Scott's in that circle of trust.
Were they
or not.
holding him for a tighter game? Or
I don't know because I don't. Did they get
some of
his
those games got a
confidence
little tight? I mean, there were some tying runs on at some points in those games. I mean, Ellie De La Cruz comes to the plate with the bases loaded. That was a big moment.
Yeah, they had it, and they had it in game 1.
They could have turned him around. Tanner Scott could have turned around to the right side.
Yeah, they didn't want to do that. So, yeah, we'll get more into that as part of the series preview, but I do think the arrival of Roki in the Dodgers bullpen is at the exact right and last possible moment for the Dodgers to shore up that weakness. What do we think of the Reds' pitching plans in the elimination game in particular? I mean, so to back up a little bit, Nick Lodolo worked out of the bullpen in Milwaukee on Sunday. And at the time that happened, the Marlins had a lead over the Mets, but you can't assume the Marlins keep that lead over the Mets. And if the Reds had lost and the Mets had won, it would have flipped. It wouldn't have made the playoffs.
Right.
So you had to use Lodolo in that situation. It was a very, I don't think it was a dumb thing to use him in relief in a game that you had to have on Sunday potentially. But you flip the script, you move ahead to game 2 of this series. Zach Littell gets the start. I went in with the assumption that Zach Littell would see each hitter one time, and that would be it. Because you had a rested Chase Burns, and you had Lodolo available out of the pen. And those 2 guys, in some combination, as guys who started throughout the season, could probably give you at a minimum 4 innings, and then you can go to your short relievers after them, right? So if you got 2 1/3 from Lodolo and 1+ from Burns, fine. That's what you should have been able to do in that instance. And you also had Nick Martinez available, which gives you even more length if you need it.
Instead, this happened. What? There's so many different places I go. In game 1, why Connor Phillips? If you like Nick Martinez and you're making the game a little bit tighter, why not use Nick Martinez where you use Connor Phillips? Even if you're not going to use Lodolo or Burns, use Nick Martinez. Keep it tight. Don't go to Connor Phillips. And that, those runs did, what was it, 10-5 in the end or something? Those runs did matter a little bit. It was the Connor Phillips and Brent Suter 5 runs that was actually the difference in the end. So I don't like that. I don't like 14 pitches from Nick Lodolo. I don't even care the outs. The outs make it look like, well, you almost used him for 2 innings. Yeah, but he got 14 pitches, dude. Nick Martinez came in and gave 17 pitches for 1 out. Just give Nick Lodolo 17 pitches. He could have gotten at least 1 out. I don't get that at all. And then Santillan before Burns. There's so much I don't get. The leaving Littell out. Okay, the one thing I do want to say is leaving Littell out for the 4th. I guess the idea is it was the bottom of the lineup, and if he gets past Muncy. Then he gets, so what he did was in the 4th, he gets Muncy first, and then he gives up a single. But I guess you leave him out there because the next 3 guys are the bottom of the lineup righties, right? But the thing about Littell is his best pitch is the splitter, right? So the lefty-righty thing doesn't mean as much to me.
Yeah, and if Lodolo starts that inning, you're lefty-lefty on Muncy, at least.
Right. And, okay, but then the other thing is, okay, it's the bottom lineup. So, Littell, you got to get me through the bottom lineup. Well, the bottom lineup for the Dodgers includes Pages, who, he struck out. So, that doesn't make my point so well looking backwards. But, I'd be nervous about Littell versus Pages, a second time. even if he's the bottom lineup. And then, of course, Enrique Hernandez and Miguel Rojas are people that maybe don't make you nervous in a vacuum. And I don't subscribe to the idea that Enrique Hernandez has figured out how to be good in the postseason and not in the regular season. But I guess the idea is, hey, these are bottom of the lineup righties. He has to be able to get through these. He was always going to go to Lodolo against Ohtani, so he just wanted Littell to get to Ohtani. And he thought, I can get Littell to get through the bottom of the lineup through the fourth, and then everything looks better for me going forward. I don't know. Enrique Hernandez doubles, why do you leave him in against Rojas after that? Then just go to Lodolo right away. And I actually think if Max Muncy singles, you go, all right, man, we already have somebody on base, and Lodolo is just a better pitcher than Littell. And given the fact that splitter is his best pitch, he's up against righties. Lodolo knows how to pitch to righties. Let's just get him in here now. I don't know.
Yeah,
the whole thing. That inning
mix.
was weird.
It was very, very weird. And if you're a Reds fan, you're just like, hey, like I know we were underdogs, and some of the vibes were maybe not from the fans as much, but just like, oh yeah, it's just kind of nice they're here. But like you're there, like do the thing that made you get there. Like you've got this pitching strength, and you didn't get to use it. And Andrew Abbott was going to start game 3. Like you were going to get length from Abbott in 3. So I felt like if your strategy was, let's just lean really heavily on Lodolo and Burns in 2 and let the chips fall where they may. Let's try to push Abbott a lot in 3. And that's at least then, like you pushed them to the brink of elimination, and you played all the cards you had as much
start
as
the
you played
fourth
them.
with Burns, Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, those decisions. The other thing that's been going around, there's a faction of Reds fans that feel that, Francona was not the best choice for manager this year, and that he hasn't been a great manager all year, and that I've even seen the phrase, the game has passed him by. Now, I'm a little bit nervous about that because, there are people in the Reds front office that are thinking this through, and they're not, the game hasn't left them behind, In fact, I think the Reds probably have a couple innovations that we don't even know about because they've done some interesting things with their pitching staff. And like Francona did manage in a more modern way in terms of like, he didn't leave Littell out for 6 or, you know what I mean? He's not a Neanderthal, so I don't know. I'm a little uncomfortable with saying somebody who's been as legendary as Francona has been in the game, sort of pointing to this and being like, you're an old man, get out of the game.
Yeah, I mean, that seems maybe more harsh than it needs to be.
But you do think that there were some bad decisions here. So,
well, I think for people that watch the team every day, and I'm not one of them, so I don't have enough to stand on to critique Terry Francona as a horrible manager at this point. I think the aspects of the job that he does well are more in the people management, the soft skills, and those types of things at this stage of his career, right? Tactically speaking, I think if I'm wrong, Reds fans can let me know. How he managed the pitching staff wasn't really the problem this year. It was more how playing time was distributed with those bats, right? I think one of the critiques we got from our friend Chris emailed us and was like, Santiago Espinal had like 300 plate appearances this year. And I was talking earlier about how this Reds team underperforms offensively, and it's kind of surprising. It's surprising to me because of the ballpark. I think it's surprising to me because of the reputation. Chris pointed out, you look back at this Reds team over the last 20 years, how many times do you think the Reds have had an above average WRC plus over the last 20 years? Because this includes all seasons going back to 2006.
I got the email, so.
You read the email, okay. Once. They've had one season. And WRC's park adjusted, so I guess my question for you is, how much are they getting dinged by Great American Ballpark in that calculation? And maybe that doesn't even matter in the grand scheme of things. How many other teams do you think we can find that have been above league average by WRC plus once, or not at all.
Rockies.
The Rockies, right? Again,
but
there's
there's an actual question as if WRC plus captures the full effect of the parks, that the altitude, and this has been a conversation on socials for me that is going on too long. Again, I'm going to have to mute another conversation because there's some people who just doubt that the altitude affects the hitters at all. But I'm sorry, I've talked to a bunch of hitters. This is a whole big deal. Like me and Charlie Blackman have talked about this ad nauseum, but you see a different mix at home because of the altitude than you see on the road. And that just makes going from one series to the next, like you just see completely different mixes, not necessarily because of the pitchers, but because of the altitude. And so pitches move completely differently. So you're worse on the road if you play in Colorado. Like, you're worse. That WRC plus is not, I think, capturing that very well. But I don't think that Cincinnati has that, that fundamental of difference. It's just, what is it? It's just hot and has slightly small dimensions.
Yeah, right. The park boosts homers, but it deflates balls in play because there's less area to cover. But they've found a way to make the pitching work. I just think it speaks to generally a lack of spending and how they draft and develop talent, right? To be like that over a 2-decade period says a lot about your organizational strengths and weaknesses. It's jarring to see it. And there are other teams that are like that, like non-Rockies division. One that really surprised me, the Arizona Diamondbacks only have 2 seasons with an above average WRC plus in the last 20 years. And then the last 2 seasons is 2024 and 2025.
They also changed their surprising though, too.
Mm-hmm.
There was a humidor effect, I think, there too.
The Pirates have 1 season where they've been above average in the last 20. Like, you're in the same company as the Pirates in terms of what you've done offensively in the last 2 decades in that measure. That's stunning.
That's surprising. That is surprising. And then this year, I think, even in these playoffs, Sal Stewart playing first, I don't know, it didn't look that good.
But this is one of the stories of the playoffs, is you have these teams that are trying to find anything they can to bolster their offense. And I think Sal Stewart was a necessary addition for the Reds. And finding that fit defensively, maybe at a position where there's less experience than you'd like. Stewart took that bad flip really hard. Like, you could tell he was feeling that after the game, reading some of the quotes that he had. And I think Nick Martinez was trying to console him, like, hey, we didn't lose because of that play. And anyway,
But I mean, you're taking a Noelvi Marte who's never played the outfield, and you're just sticking him there in September or whenever it was, and just being like, there you go. And it looked good at times, and it wasn't a disaster, but it also was sort of indicative of the unnatural fit of some of the pieces on this roster.
Yeah. And it leaves us with a question that we're not necessarily going to answer in its entirety today, and it makes you wonder, what does 2026 hold for Cincinnati? A lot of the pitching comes back. They're going to have a couple of holes in the bullpen for guys who are on expiring deals, like Emilio Pagan's gone. At the same time, the season they got from Pagan, getting that again next year seemed pretty unlikely anyways. It seems like a team that still needs 2 more bats. They need to probably fix Ke'Bryan Hayes at the plate or just get him healthy. You just wonder how much of Ke'Bryan Hayes' overall lack of offensive output over these last couple of years is the function of his back injury that he's dealt with. As much as you can look at this year and say it's a step forward and they've got pitching figured out, what they do this offseason is going to be critical if they're going to actually make a return trip to the postseason in 2026.
They've had 2 million fans 2 straight years. They've had an increase of about 130,000 fans this year. You wonder if, there's ever going to be a case for, pushing the payroll a little bit. I've seen some calls for trading a Nick Lodolo for offense, but I doubt they'll do something that aggressive. When you have Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo at the top of the rotation, that's a great advantage. I think they'll just try to piece together smaller pieces to make the roster fit better.
It should be doable. I think we can find mid-tier free agents.
Noelvi Marte. That's one that I could actually see happening. I know it's a source of offense for them, but your whole history with them is part of it too.
A bat for
And
a bat? I don't know.
Yeah, I guess not. I don't know.
I think anything's possible, but let us know in Discord. What do you think the Reds' off-season plan should be? We'll take a look at every team's off-season plans once we get through the playoffs. Just a disappointing way to go out, I think, when you look at how the pitching was handled in those two games, since that was the thing that I thought gave them a puncher's chance against the Dodgers this entire time. We are going to go. Got games starting up here in just a couple of hours. Thanks to our producer, Brian Smith, putting this together. Join the Discord with the link in the show description if you haven't done that already. We are going to have our DS round previews coming up on Friday. That's going to do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels.
Thanks for listening.